Hare Krishna. Can I be heard?
Yes, Prabhuji, you are audible.
So, well, we can. And I can be seen?
Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
Okay, looks all right. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juttapadamam Shri Guru Shri Krishna Shri Rupam Shaguru Shantam Shadam Sadvaitam Sadvaitam Krishna Chaitanya Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Larita Shibishakam Gutancha Mantra Guru are Jotoshika Guru Gon Tar Jordanaya Gikori Abondan Bansha Kapatrubya Ashtakabashan Vishapuditana Bhavana Vaishnava No Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Shasvi Jamini Vishesha Shrimati Prasthata Deshatane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanitananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shri Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. We were hearing how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his attempt to go to Vrindavan, returned to Gaudiya and traveled along the bank of the Ganga, regularly taking his bath. And so many devotees were accompanying him, and the crowd was getting more and more. In fact, wherever Kaviraj Goswami describes that wherever Sri Sachinandan, wherever his lotus feet touched the path, touched the ground, the followers, who had thousands and thousands who had gathered, would collect that dust, take it back, and the road was completely destroyed. Unfortunately, we were, even though I may have mentioned this to you, that we are living in Mayapur in India, based in India, Gaudiya, 25 years, but only recently did I have the fortune to visit Srila Prabhupada's birthplace. And ISKCON has acquired a property there, quite a large, definitely enough to have programs there. And we're gradually acquiring more of the land, and with the help of the West Bengal government. And we'll have a whole museum project there, temple with Prabhupada. So it's a wonderful project. So that I was able to acquire some of the dust of the lotus birthplace, of the transcendental appearance of place of His Divine Grace, as Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I pray that in the association of the servants of Sri Radha Rashbihari, that I can visit the birthplace of Srila Prabhupada and hear his glories from the lips of the Pranaya Bhakadagon. Gaudama Jai Shabashtan Karala Brahmana Rangai Shai Shabashtan Heribo Ami Pranaya Bhakadasham. All the places that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his transcendental pastimes, I desire to visit them. Shai Shabashtan Heribo Ami Pranaya Bhakadasham, in the association of the loving devotees. So that is my desire, to visit Prabhupada's birthplace, which is obviously a place where Gauranga Mahaprabhu has performed his transcendental Leela, because his representative appeared there. And there's other places we can see in Kolkata also, places of Nityananda Prabhu's pastimes, many things, and Prabhupada's pastimes. So I pray to be able to see such places in the association of the Shri Radha Rashbihari Pranaya Bhakadagon. So many people had gathered, and then Mahaprabhu, he arrived at Ramkeli and was performing Sankirtan, and the Nawab, the Mughal Emperor of Bengal, the Sultan of Bengal, his palace was not far from where Mahaprabhu was performing Kirtan. He sent the Chief Constable of Police. He asked him in advance, tell me about this. I've heard this mendicant has come from Bengal and he's followed by tens of thousands of people. Tell me what is his activity? What is his features? What's his activity? How does he sleep? How does he eat? Tell me all of these things. What does he speak? And the police constable went and he saw Mahaprabhu. Even though he'd seen many saints and sadhus, the constable of police, he'd never seen a sadhu like that. He thought that Gauranga was more like a prince who had given up material life and accepted sannyas, and was wondering, his form was so beautiful. And lovely, extraordinarily beautiful descriptions Srila Vrndavana Thakura gives. Sometimes Mahaprabhu's body would erupt like a jackfruit, jackfruit, katao, erupt like a jackfruit, horripilation, and he would fall on the ground 100 times every minute. His body was soft like butter, and his form shone like molten gold, and he's wearing a reddish cloth that looked like the color of the rising sun. Hearing this, the Nawab's mind changed. Poshu paki jure, pashana bidore, shuni jara gunagata. Poshu paki jure. The beasts and the birds cry, pashana bidore, stone melts, shuni jara guna. When you hear about their qualities. So hearing about the form of the Lord and his behavior and how he asked, what does he eat? How does he sleep? He said he never even thinks of eating or sleeping. He never even comes into consideration of the external circumstances. He's just completely absorbed in the kirtan prema, shankirtan prem, Krishna prem, prem shankirtan. So the Nawab, hearing this, he was astonished. And he said that you let him go, don't anyone disturb him, whatever he likes, he can do, kingdom. And he went to his interior private quarters after making that declaration. If anyone disturbs him, I will destroy their whole family. And then he called for Rupa Goswami. We were discussing that in the last session, his discussions with Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, the principal student of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Rupa Goswami. We'll get to the Rupshika, the teachings to Rupa Goswami, but we can take as long as we like to get that. Actually, today we'll talk a little bit more about Ram Kelly, but tomorrow we're going to Shantipur with devotees from Mayapur tourism. They've invited devotees and they have a program, a couple of buses. And I was invited to go and sing and speak. So there's some things that I prepared, and it's so exciting about Sachimata and Mahaprabhu's departure from Shantipur, which happened before where we are now, but everything's related. So I'll take some time to share that with you today also, because it's on my mind, having been hearing and researching those incidents in Shantipur. So I'll share that with you also today. Now let's carry on. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they met with the Lord, they expressed their humility. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he initiated them, changed their names. Prabhupada said that it's essential for a candidate to change his name at the time of initiation. You give up this humility, your humility is breaking my mind. And in this way, Rupa and Sanatana got the mercy of Chaitanya. He instructed them about the letter, about the wife who's interested in another paramour, and she becomes more attentive to the household duties so that no one would suspect her. He gave these instructions. He said, Krishna will deliver you very soon. You are my eternal servitors. And Rupa and Sanatana, they took the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu put his hands on their heads. And then they reached out and grabbed the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu and put that on their heads. Now they're leaving, and all of the devotees were so. Dewey John, this is, we're back in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhulila. This is around about text 219 of, I think it is, isn't it? Bangshini Shaki, I think that's where we got up to 219 or 18 of chapter 1, Madhulila. Dui jane prabhur kripa dekhi bhakta gane hari hari bole shabai anandita mone. So all the devotees were extremely enlivened and anandito. overwhelmed, blissed out, anandito. And they chanted Hari Hari, Duijon Prabhu Kripa Deki, seeing the mercy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had bestowed upon these Duijon, these two. And who are those devotees who are there? Nityananda, Haridas, Shribash, Godadha, Mukunda, Jagadananda, Murari, Bakeshar. Shabai Charane Dhari, Pore, Dui, Bhai, they took the dust of the lotus feet of all those great devotees. Shabai Bale, Dhanna Tumi Pailo Goshai, Dhanna Tumi Pailo Goshai there, and the devotees all said, yeah, Dhanna Tumi, so wonderful. They congratulated the two brothers for having received the mercy of the Lord. Dhanna Tumi Pailo Goshai. So at that time, before leaving, is in the middle of the night, remember, before leaving and returning to their residences, they mentioned, particularly Sanatana Goswami, that this king of Bengal, Sultan of Bengal, the Nawab, is respectful toward you, but seeing as that you have no other business here, you can depart from this place. Because he can't be trusted, because such persons that can't control their senses, actually, you can't really be trusted. They can't even trust themselves, what to speak of things that they say. So anything could happen, could change his mind, could be problems, big problems. So better that you leave this place. And then Sanatana Goswami said that we think there's no need to go to Vrindavan with such a great crowd. Sanatana Goswami explains, this is around text 230, something like that, 225, 224, 224, yeah. Jar Shonge, Chole, E Lok, Lokakuti, Vrindavan, Jatrar, E Nahi Pori Pati. This is not the way to go to Vrindavan. Lokakoti with tens of thousands of people. This is not the way to go to Vrindavan. It's not a fitting way to go on pilgrimage. Prabhupada in his purport, he comments that, he says that if you bring people to Vrindavan or to the Holy Dham for business purposes, large crowds of men are taken to different places of pilgrimage and to collect from them. Lucrative business. So they disapproved of such crowded pilgrimages. And eventually we'll see that Mahaprabhu went to Vrindavan with just one or two people. So we have large devotees, but we have large groups coming and visiting, and we're arranging, ISKCON preachers, they arrange for large groups to visit the Holy Dham. But it's not as a business, not as a business venture. It's not as meant as we'll make a lot of money out of it, that's why we'll do it. No. There may be some fee, but that should be minimal just to cover the expenses of what's required for managing the program, the pandals, the sound system, the prasadam, accommodation, etc. But not that it's a profitable venture. This is not approved by the Goswamis nor Srila Prabhupada. So Sanatana Goswami here is saying that it's better not to go to Vrindavan with such a large crowd. Eta boli charan bandi gelo duijon. Saying this, they took the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord, charan bandi, offered prayers to the lotus feet of the Lord, charan bandi. They offered prayers to the lotus feet of the Lord. Gelo duijon, and they returned to their residences. Prabhu she gram hoite cholite hoilomon. So Prabhu she grame hoite cholite, to leave that place. Hoite cholite hoilomon. He decided, hoilomon, he thought, yes, he desired to leave that village, indicating that his purpose for visiting Ramkeli and the capital had been fulfilled in meeting Rupa and Sanatana. So the next morning, Mahaprabhu, he left Ramkeli and he continued in the direction of Vrindavan. And he came to the Ganga. Ganga is there in Ramkeli. now, if you Ganga, I don't think you'll find it in Naldaram Kelly, maybe, but Ganga is moved, or else there was different branches, probably different branches. So he carried on in the north easterly direction. This is from Bengal to UP, northeasterly direction. He carried on, and then he came to Kanai Natashala. And that's Ma Ganga and Kanai Natashala she's very broad. In the map, you can see she's very broad. You can hardly see the other side. And Kanai Natashala. Now, the good fortune, Kanai Natashala Mahaprabhu also has visited when he was returning from Bihar, from Gaya, having taken the initiation from Ishwar Puri. He returned through Kanai Natashala, coming back into Bengal. And at that time, Krishna appeared to him. And Gopal, Nandanandan. And for that reason, when Mahaprabhu arrived in Mayapur, he was completely overwhelmed with love of Godhead, and the tears were profusely flowing from his eyes because he just had darshan of Nanda Dulal. And it completely overwhelmed him. It's not like that's something that you would forget. Of course, Mahaprabhu Bhakta Rupa, he's playing the role of a devotee, Bhakta Rupa. So he's acting like a devotee that had that experience and the way it would affect him. Although he's God himself, he's already completely full in himself. Puna, no question of becoming more. Although it's enhanced, Bhav is enhanced. So he's acting like a devotee. And he had that experience, and it's not like that was something that, on the way back I saw Krishna, and that was nice, and I'm carrying on with my activities. Nanda Dulal, Govinda Gopal appears before you. That's something that's going to make you like a mad person. You're never going to be able to forget that. It'll be on your mind the whole time. That would be such an experience that you'll never forget that the whole life. And Mahaprabhu was in that consciousness when he came back to Mayapur, and immediately all the devotees gathered around. And that's another Leela that on occasion we will share with you. Mahaprabhu beginning the Sankirtan, he sat to give the class, and he couldn't answer the questions. He could only talk about Krishna. And he said that because I'm always seeing that form that I saw, it came and went. Biraha bhav, the separation. I'm always seeking that form. Then I can't concentrate. I can't think anything else. I can't give the class. I can only answer with the name of the Lord. So Kanai Natashala, Mahaprabhu, next day he left, he walked from Ramkelly and he arrived in Kanai Natashala. Now, ISKCON, we have a property there. ISKCON has a beautiful property there. Actually, the devotee's name in charge is Brajaraj Kanai. Been my student in the past. He's invited us. Anytime you want to come, there's a guest house there. There's Ma Ganga. You can take bath in Ganga. We can hear these pastimes. So at Kanai Natashala, Mahaprabhu began to think. He went and he arrived there. Then he stayed there. And then that night, and then the next morning, that night actually, he's considering Sanatana Goswami's statement. The atmosphere will be disturbed if I go to Vrindavan with so many followers. Mahaprabhu was thinking that bhaloto kohilo more eto lok shonge bhaloto. Bhalo is very good what Sanatana said. Bhaloto kohilo. What Sanatana said, bhaloto kohilo. More eto lok shonge, with so many people, along with so many people. Log, if I go to Vrindavan, log deki. Koribe, more, a ek dongi. He's an imposter. They'll rebuke me. He's saying he's an imposter. He's coming with so many people, like a magician with his show, Prabhupada translates. With soldiers and the beating of drums. Fire upon me. Mahaprabhu was thinking this in Kanai Natashala. And then he considers that Durlabh, Durgam, Shay Nirjan Vrindavan, that hard to achieve, Durlabh, difficult to achieve, Durgam, that solitary place. Durlabh, Durgam, it's hard to achieve, Prabhupada says, a solitary place. It's invincible and very difficult to attain. Durlabh, Durgam. She Nirjan Vrindavan. At Vrindavan down. Ekaki Jaibo Kiba Shonge Ekjon. Ekaki Jaibo, I will go alone. Kiva or Shonge Ekjon. I will take along with me one person. Shonge Ekjon. So Mahaprabhu's decided he won't go, he won't carry on to Vrindavan in this time. It's not appropriate. And Bhaloto Kohilo, what Sanatana Goswami said is very good. I will not go, I will disturb the atmosphere. I will not go, I will go alone, or I will take with me one person. Eta Chinta. Prata Kale. Ganga Shnan Kori. So thinking like this the next morning, Prata Kale, Ganga Shnan Kori, taking his bath in the Ganga. Nila Chale. Jabo Bole, Cholila Gauda Hari. I will go to Nilachal. Bole, Cholila Gauda, going to Nilachal, Mahaprabhu. I shall go. He started for Jagannath Puri and he said, I shall, Cholila, Nilachal Jabo, I will go to Jagannath Puri. And so in this way, Mahaprabhu, he returned. He didn't continue on to Jagannath Puri. Now the return is described in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, the return, Mahaprabhu's return journey. Again, he comes to Shantipur. Again, he comes to Panihati, and there's different leelas. We can share with you on an occasion. He goes to the home of Kumar of Srivas Thakur. He meets with Raghunath Das in Shantipur. That's the first meeting of Raghunath Das, who was a young boy at the time. And all of these pastimes are described. But let's move ahead a little to, we won't go into that in detail now, because we'll come to, Mahaprabhu returns to Jagannath Puri. And then after some time, he goes to Vrindavan through Jarikan forest, taking, as he said, alone or with one person. He takes two people, one servant, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, and one other, to assist Balabhadra Bhattacharya. He goes through the forest and he quietly enters Vrindavan with only those two associates. Now, upon the return to Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu, he's still remembering this humility of Rupa and Sanatana, and so he calls the devotees. This is Madhya Lila, chapter 17. Chaitanya Charitamrita is the attempt to go to Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu goes and then he comes back. That's also a nice chapter. I'm referring to some things from the chapter. It's such a wonderful chapter. So it's describing now that Mahaprabhu went to Ramkeli and then hearing the instructions of Sanatana, or the advice of Sanatana Goswami. And of course, his only real purpose for going there was to meet Rupa and Sanatana, it appears, up to this point. But there's other reasons, which we will look at. In fact, it's interesting that on one occasion, Mahaprabhu says that Gauda hoite more dui shamashrai janani janovi e dui doyamo. In Gauda Desh, I have two shelters, my mother and Maganga. So I want to go to Vrindavan via Bengal and associate with the Maganga, associate with Shachimata and all the Gaudiya Vaisnavism, all the Bengali devotees from different parts of Bengal, see them, and take them with me to Vrindavan. So that was reason why he was going to Gauda Desh, it mentions. But when he was with Rupa and Sanatana in the middle of the night, he said, the only reason I've come is to meet you two brothers and to encourage you and to connect with you and inspire you. So that's another reason. He says, only to meet with you. And firstly, he says that is to meet with the Bengali devotees and take Bhata Manganga. And then he says, it's only to meet with Rupa and Sanatana that I've come to Bengal. And now, whilst he's going through the forest with Balabhadra Bhattacharya, Mahaprabhu says something else about the reason why he went to Gauda Desh. This is Madhya Lila, chapter 17, text 65 to 72. Niranto premabeshe nirjan gaman shukha anubhavi prabhu kohen bachon. Shukha anubhavi, he was so anubhav, such a feelings of great happiness. Prabhu kohen bachon, Mahaprabhu said that whilst you were niranto premavesh, nirjan gaman, alone through the forest, niranto premavesh, in love of Godhead, as he was traveling alone through the forest, he said to Balabhadra Bhattacharya that traveling through the forest in this way, we haven't even received the slightest trouble. Krishna Kripalu, Amar, Bahut kripa koilo. Krishna is full of mercy. He's bestowed so much mercy on me. Bahut kripa koilo. Bon pote ani amar boro shuka dilo. Bon pote. Through this forest path. Ani, he's brought me through the forest path. Bon pote ani amar boro shukadila. He's given me so much happiness. Shukadila, so much happiness coming through the forest. He was enjoying, Mahaprabhu was enjoying that. He would take bath in the morning in the streams and the waterfalls of the forest. Bhadra would collect the shark and the vegetables and the wild vegetables plant in the forest and make sabji preparations. Occasionally they would meet people living in small village or small, and they would get grains, which Balabhadra Bhattacharya would keep with him for as required, a few days. He would keep a stock of grain. And then they would collect whatever wild fruits, vegetables they could find in the forest. He would cook on the open fire. Mahaprabhu would make a fire in the morning and in the evening. And they would cook. Obviously, they had a pot. They would cook. Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu was taking that prasadam, traveling for the forests, bathing in the rivers and the waterfalls. And he was very happy. So he says that Krishna is so merciful that he's given me an opportunity to travel in this way alone through the forest. He was enjoying it so much. Mahaprabhu mentions that before I decided to go to Vrndavana, and on the way see Ma Ganga and my mother. But yeah, Bhaktagon Shonge, Aboshoy, Koribo Milon, certainly I will meet again with all the devotees. Aboshoy. Koribo Milan, certainly I will meet all the devotees. Bhaktagon Shonge from Gaudiya. Bhaktagon Shonge Lai Jabo Vrndavana, and taking all the devotees with me, I'll go to Vrndavana. Mahaprabhu says that I was desiring that, I was thinking that. Eta bhabi, thinking in this way, feeling like this. Eta bhabi, Gaudiya Korilo Gomon. I went to Gaudiya. Mata Ganga Bhakta Deki Shuki Hoilomon, and seeing my mother, seeing Ma Ganga, seeing all the devotees. Mata Ganga Bhakta Deki Shuki Hoilomon. I became so satisfied. I became so enlivened. But so many thousands of devotees began to follow me, and the crowds began to swell that Shonatan Mukhe Krishna Amar Shikaila. Through the mouth of Sanatana Goswami, Krishna gave me a lesson. Taha, Bikna Kore, Bon Pate, Laya, Aila. So there's so many, he's saying that the crowds had gathered so much, and this was a bigna. This was an obstacle for me to go. Taha Bigna Kore. So and therefore I returned. I didn't go because so many large crowds had gathered, that became an obstacle. And Krishna taught me that through the lips of Sanatana, so then I returned. Tara Bigna Kori, Bon Pot Laila Olo, and Krishna's brought me through this forest path. So there's three different reasons he gives, and they're all exclusive. They're not related to each other. I mean, at different times he says, that's why I went to Bengal. One, take bath in Ganga, see Sachimatra and all the Bengali devotees. Two, meet Ram Kelly, meet Rupa and Sanatana in Ram Kelly, only reason. And now I wouldn't have gone through, he's saying I wouldn't have gone through the forest, but because I attempted to go, and then Krishna taught me the lesson, I had no other choice but to go through the forest. So Mahaprabhu was saying that whole Tabhignakori, that whole program was simply to bring me through the forest. And therefore Krishna is Bahut Kripa. He's Kripalu, and he's full of mercy, and he's shown so much mercy on me, because that which in the past we thought was an obstacle and an impediment, that so many people were joining us, we couldn't go to Vrndavana. Actually, that's been a great blessing for me, from Krishna, so I can go through the village, so I can go through the jungle, the forest path. So that's very instructive for us, that things which at the first may appear to be a great obstacle for us may actually be Krishna's mercy upon us, and especially for a devotee. And we should, and Krishna's mercy is that he'll help us to see things in that way. So let's become Ye Bhajanti Tumam Bhakti Maiti Teshu Chapyanam in this way. if you worship Krishna, he becomes your friend, you become absorbed in him, he becomes interested in you, and he helps you in this way. And therefore, even things which are apparently reverses and impediments are actually Krishna's mercy upon us. So I'll carry on, and is any question on that? We can take questions on that if anyone has any questions on Mahaprabhu's description of Mahaprabhu. Coming back to Jagannath Puri, what he said when he got back about the humility of Rupa and Sanatan, and also deciding to go through the forest, and his thoughts in traveling through the forest about the whole Gaudiya tour. Any question on that? Let's go back a little then to after taking sannyas. And Gauranga Mahaprabhu, but let's take a look now at how is it that Gauranga Mahaprabhu was residing in Jagannath Puri. How is it that we'll take a step back and we'll look at why Mahaprabhu was residing in Jagannath Puri. And this was all decided in Shantipur, that having taken sannyas at Katha, and Mahaprabhu, he was trying to go to Vrndavana, and Keshav Bharati, Mahaprabhu's sannyas guru, was also accompanying him, and they were going through the forest. And then Nityananda Prabhu, by his arrangement, Nityananda Prabhu arranged, that a full story we can narrate in more detail another time. Nityananda Prabhu arranged, told the cowherd boys, when you see the tall figure, the Gauranga, with a complexion of molten gold, and he asks you, where is Vrindavan, where is the Jamuna? You point him in the direction of the Ganga. And all of this eventuated, and Mahaprabhu saw the boys, and he asked, where is Vrindavan, where is Jamuna? They pointed to the Ganga. He jumped in, he was floating down the Ganga in ecstasy, offering prayers to Jamuna. And then he floats all the way to Shantipur. He was somewhere in Radhadesh, and he was wandering around, jumps in the Ganga, floats down to Shantipur. He sees Advaita Acharya. On the banks, Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu had told Advaita, it's all Nityananda Prabhu's arrangement. He would get to Mahaprabhu to Shantipur and bring all the devotees from Navadip who were completely devastated because Mahaprabhu suddenly left. He took sannyas suddenly, no one even knew. And in the morning, they're asking, where is Gauranga? Where's Dvijambar? And then the news came that he'd taken sannyas. So the devotees were wailing and crying, and it was very painful for them. It was too much. He just goes like that. So at least give us some time that we can share with him before he leaves, having taken sannyas. So this was all Nityananda Prabhu's plan. It's the devotee care example, and caring for the devotees. So how can they survive without spending time with Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi, and in that way be easier for them to accept that he's gone, and that wasn't important. So there's some period of time where they can associate intimately in ecstatic, intimate Vaishnava Sangha, performing Sankirtan, and in that way get some nourishment and then be able to tolerate the separation of the Lord. So he's in Advaita Acharya's house, and the festival of Madhavendra Puri and Advaita Thakur and Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is celebrated in Shantipur in 2 or 3 days' time, and all the devotees from Mayapur, they go for that festival. So that festival is also commemorating this event. So for 10 days, Mahaprabhu was at the house of Advaita Acharya. We're reading from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 3, Madhya Lila. So Mahaprabhu, as we've mentioned before, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila begins when Mahaprabhu takes sannyas. And this is chapter 3. So he's taken sannyas, and then he's journeying, and he's at the house of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur, and for 10 days. So the devotees, Chandrasekhar, who sometimes Mahaprabhu, they say his house is is there where Sri Thakur had his residence in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji. We went into that building last time I was there. I don't often get that opportunity, but I can go in and see his rooms there. And so that's Chandrasekhar Acharya's house. And sometimes Mahaprabhu would perform kirtan there rather than Srivas Thakur's house, and dramas and different things. So at Chandrasekhar, he's in Mayapur and in Navadip, and he's arranging for more devotees to come now to Shantipur. He's arranging for Shachimat to come. And I arranged a palanquin all the way from Mayapur to Shantipur, walking, and Sachimat is sitting on the palanquin. What honor and respect the Navadip Basis were showing to Sachimata, which is very appropriate. They loved her so much, they considered her the mother of God. All the people of Nadia, all the people of Nadia, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions, including women, boys, old men, came there. The crowd increased in Advaita Acharya's house. In fact, we'll hear a little later that Advaita Acharya accommodated the man. So Sachimata now, she arrives from the palanquin, she gets down, and Mahaprabhu, seeing Sachimata come, he falls down in front of her like a stick. Crying, Sachimata takes the Lord on her lap. And seeing each other, they're both overwhelmed. Now, seeing the Lord without hair, can you imagine? Dvijambar, Gaudhari, Navadev Chandra, who's beautiful long hair, like we worship the deity of Mahaprabhu, beautiful long hair, cascading down his shoulders, curly long hair, dark, well, with the oiled fragrant scents, and tied in a knot at the top. The devotees would decorate with flowers. They're beautiful. There's a shamadhi. We visited Katha, Mahaprabhu's Sanyashtan, so the chul shamadhi, that hair of Mahaprabhu was kept in shamadhi there and worshipped. So seeing the Lord's head without hair, Sachimata became greatly agitated. And she was caressing the body of the Lord. She took him on her lap, and she's caressing, she's kissing. And her eyes were filled with tears, and she's looking at him. Kandiya, Kohen Shachi. And then listen to what she says. The first thing she says, she arrives, gets down from her palanquin. Mahaprabhu sees her, comes, falls down at her feet. She takes him, Nimai, she puts him on her lap. She's crying, she's caressing his body. She sees his shaven head. She's crying when she speaks. The first thing she says, just understand the heart of Sachimata. Just understand the heart of the Navadip Bashis as represented by Sachimata here. She says, this is text number 143 of chapter 3, Madhulila. Kandiya, Kohen, Shachi, Bachare Nimai, Kandiya Kohen. Kandiya, crying, Kohen, she says, Shachi, Bachare Nimai. Oh, Bacha is like baby, like my darling Bacha, my darling son. Bachare Nimai, she calls him Bachare Nimai. Vishwarup Shama Na Koriha Niturai. So Vishwarup Shama, like Vishwarup Shama Na Koriha. You don't do like Vishwarup. Don't do like Vishwarup. Who? We didn't even know he took sannyas. He didn't have that. Even Mahaprabhu took sannyas in Katha, took some devotees, 4 devotees with him. Vishwarup, we don't even know where he took sannyas. He just left. Vishwarup just left. Hearing they were talking in the evening. They were talking Sachimata, Jagannath. Now his vivaha shamoy, his time for wedding has come. Just as saying that and hearing that, Vishwarup heard that. And then that's it. Next day he was born. So that was so painful. Vishwarup was the son that was born to Sachimata after she had 7 or 8 daughters that had passed away. We don't often hear that. But she had 7 or 8 daughters, and one after another, they all passed away. And then, and there's a reason for that, which you can hear another time. And then Vishwarup was born. Can you imagine their attachment for Vishwarup? And he was almost 10 years older than Nimai. So that 10-year period, it was only Vishwarup in their lives. And then he took sannyas, perhaps he was in his teens. Nimai was a young boy, so he would have been 17 or 18 years old, Vishwarup. Sachimata is saying, the first thing she says, he can't falling on her feet and caressing. Don't do like Vishwarupa. Don't be cruel. Nitorai, nita means cruelty. Don't be cruel like Vishwarupa. He never again gave us audience. Mahaprabhu responds that, oh, Sachimata, please, that this body belongs to you. I do not possess anything. It comes from you. I cannot repay this debt even in millions of births. Jani, ba na jani, koilo, japi shanash, tatapi tomare kobo nahi udhash. Jani ba na jani, for some reason, knowingly or unknowingly, jani ba na jani, koilo, japi shanash. I have accepted, even though I've accepted this sannyas, knowingly or unknowingly, tatapi, even though, tomare, you, to you, tomare, kobo nahi uda, I will never be indifferent to you. Tumi jaha, koha, ami taha, rahibo, wherever you tell me to stay, there, that's where I will stay. So this is very interesting now that, as far as I can see, from what I've read in the Gaudiya Goswami Grantha and the writings of the Gaudiya Acharyas about why Mahaprabhu is residing in Puri, there may be reasons, like Bhakti Pushta Maharaj was saying, how we were mentioning when we were in Puri, how the environment was so wonderful with the king being a devotee and everything, and such a wonderful place. And Mahaprabhu, after preaching, he preached and then he resided in Jagannath, but then again he preached, which is described in Madhya Lila, Gamon Agamon, Kabu Choi Taramode, Gamon Agamon, Tabu Choi Botcho, Tabu Taramode, Choi Botcho, Gamon Agamon, Kabu Dokin, Kabu Gold, Kabu Vrndavana, the Madhya Lila, Mahaprabhu coming and going from Jagannath Puri. Sometimes he went to South India, he went to Bengal, he went to Vrndavana. And all of the teachings, all of his preaching, his main philosophical preaching is compiled, is presented during that period of six years during the Madhya Lila. And then after that, Mahaprabhu remained in Jagannath Puri. So this is why Jagannath Puri? Pratapurja Maharaj was the king, everything was so wonderfully arranged. Lord Jagannath is there. But here we see that Mahaprabhu says, Tumi jaha koho, Tumi jaha koho, ami tahan rohi, wherever you tell me to stay, I will stay there. Tumi jay agya koro, sheito koribo, whatever you order, I shall execute. Tumi jay agya koro, sheito koribo, whatever you order, I will execute. Eta boli, puna puna, kore namaskar. Again and again he offered, saying this again and again, he offered obeisances to Sachimata. Tushta hoya ai kole kore baba. Tushta hoya ai kole kore baba. Kole kore means taking him on her lap. Tushta hoya, being satisfied with him saying that. Tushta, and he says that whatever you order, I will accept. Wherever you tell me to stay, I will stay. And saying that, he offers obeisances again and again. Tushta hoya, I kole kore, baba. Again, she's taking him on her lap again and again. Okay, that's it. And she'll say something a little later. So Advaita Acharya, he takes Mahaprabhu into the house, and then so many other devotees have come from Navadvip at that time. And they're just seeing Mahaprabhu now for the first time after taking sannyas. Keshna dekiya bhakta, jajabi by dhuk, not seeing his hair, Keshna dekiya bhakta, jajabi, because of that, by dhuk, they got so much pain. Shandorja dekite tobo pai mahashuk. Shandorja, even though he's shaven head, which is so painful for them. Shandorja, seeing his beauty. Shandorja dekite. Kobu, tobu pai mahashuk, but seeing the beauty of Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi. They got so much happiness. They nonetheless derive great happiness from seeing his beauty. And who are these devotees who are there looking at Mahaprabhu's beauty in his sannyas robes with his golden form and shaven head? Regularly, we'll see Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami list all the names of the devotees. Many times, he lists them all as arriving in Jagannath Puri. He lists all the names as they, before coming to Jagannath Puri for the first time, they have a festival in Advaita Acharya's house. He lists all the names of the devotees. So all the devotees who have come now, he lists all their names. Sriva, and just by hearing the names of these Gaurangi Rushangigon, Nitya Siddha Koriman, they're eternal associates, Brajabasis, they appear with the Lord to serve him in his Navadip pastimes. So he lists their names. By hearing their names, we're purified. Shriva Shramai, Vidyanidhi, Godadhar, Gangadash, Bhakweshra Murari, Shuklambar, Buddhimanto, Khan, Nandan, Murari, Bijoy, Basudev, Damodar, Mukunda Sanjay. Koto naam Laibo, Joto, Navadip, Bashi. How many names I can say? Joto Navadip Bashi means all of the residents of Navadip. Joto Navadip Bashi. Shabade, Milila, Prabhu, Kripa, Drishti Hashi. Having all of those devotees having come, Mahaprabhu greeted them with smiles and glances of mercy, all the inhabitants of Navadip. So they're doing Sankirtan for 10 days, all the inhabitants of Navadip, for 10 days in the domicile of Advaita Acharya, and his house became just like Vaikuntha-puri. And other villages as well, nearby villages. I remember we used to be in Australia doing preaching programs. It was so difficult to get people to come. So much proselytization was required on the street, handing out cards, announcing. This was before Facebook and social media. This was in the 90s. I was in Australia preaching there. But here, particularly in Bangladesh, you don't just go to the place and start the program and it's packed. Within a few minutes, it's packed. And people there's everywhere. There's people. They just come. You've got a whole hall full of people. Just start the program. You hardly have to advertise. So people from nearby villages, they also came. And Kaviraj Goswami mentions that Advaita Thakur, he gave residential quarters and prasadam for all of and arranged everything for all of those people who came. What an ideal householder. I mean, there's thousands of people, all the residents of Navadip, Kaviraj Goswami says, and he accommodated them all and fed them for 10 days. Advaita Thakur, because the supplies of Advaita Acharya were inexhaustible and indestructible. So Sachimata took care of the cooking, and Mahaprabhu dined in the day. He took prasadam with the devotees, and he interacted with the Advaita Acharya, and at night time, everyone could see the Lord dancing in kirtan. You imagine those kirtans? Of course, we hear about the kirtans in Srivas Angan, Mahaprabhu every night doing kirtan. There's elaborate descriptions. One day we hope to be able to get to that section of Madhulila Navadip with you. Now we're ahead, but we'll come back to that. Navadip Lila, Madhulila, and Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan pastimes in Srimad Sangam. But imagine these Sankirtan pastimes in Advaita Thakur's house. Mahaprabhu has just taken sannyas, and he's about to leave the devotees. You imagine what those kirtans would have been like. The Mridanga playing, the Bengali devotees, the kirtan, Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu dancing. What a scene. Anyway, by the mercy of Kaviraj Goswami, we can see through internal vision by hearing his descriptions. Kirtan korite Prabhu Sharba Bhav Udoy. Kirtan korite Prabhu Sharba Bhav Udoy. Sharba Bhabodoy, Sharbo Bhabodoy. All of the emotions erupted in Mahaprabhu. Sharbo Bhabodoy. All of the emotions erupted in Mahaprabhu. Kirtan Korite. Just by doing kirtan. When he performed kirtan, all the transcendental symptoms manifest in him. Maybe once in a life we get some brief, some shadow feeling of bhava. Mahaprabhu as soon as he entered the kirtan, all of the transcendental symptoms would arise. Bhav odai, Shtamba, Kampa, Pulakasru, Goda, Pralai. Shtamba, he would become stunned. Kampa, he would quiver. Pulakasru, his hair stood on end. Pulakasru, his hair stood on end. Gada, his voice faltered. Pralaya, and the devastation. What pralaya is, I mean, what's the difference between stamba and pralaya? You can study Nectar Devotion. Prabhupada in the purport, he says all of these bhabs are shtai, they're all described in Nectar Devotion. So there's stamba, you become like a pillar, transfixed. And then there's pralaya, devastation. What is this? What does devastation look like? Devastation. So Mahaprabhu would frequently tumble and smash to the ground. Seeing this, Sachimata would, imagine those kirtans. All of the transcendental symptoms would erupt in Mahaprabhu, and he would crash to the ground. So seeing this, Sachimata would cry. Seeing this, Mahaprabhu crashing to the ground, Sachimata would cry. Now listen to what Sachimata says. This is amazing. Listen to what she says. She says that, alas, she petitions Lord Vishnu. My dear Lord, kindly bestow upon me this benediction. Ballokal, hoite, tomar, jay koilo shebon, tar e Paul, more deho, narayon. She says, ballokale, kal. In my childhood, Ballokal, Tomar Jay Koilun Shebon, that service I did for you. Oh, in other words, all the service I've done for you my whole life. All the service I've rendered to you since my childhood. Paul, More Deho. You give me the result of those. You give me this benediction as a result of all the service I've done to you since my childhood. This is what she's asking. She's asking the fruit of all of her seva is, I want a benediction. Seems like that can be done. Mother Sachi is doing it. But what benediction she's asking for? This is amazing. She says, Je kale, nimai, pore, dorani, upore. When he falls down, that time when he falls down, dorani, upore, on the earth. Je kale, nimai, pore, dorani, upore, he falls down on the earth. Bata jena nahi lage nimai shoride. Bata, no pain. Bata jena nahi lage. He doesn't feel any pain. Nimai shoride in his body. When he falls down, crashes down on the ground. I ask for this benediction as a result of all the service I've done for you my whole life, that Nimai never feels any pain when he crashes down to the ground in that way in Kirtan. In the purport, Prabhupada is explaining about this interesting thing here, that he's commenting how Sachimata is a Nityasiddha. She is Majasoda, Shachija Shoda. She's Majasoda. She's not a conditioned soul or even a sadhaka. She's an eternal associate of the Lord. She just appears to perform Leela, but she doesn't know that, because they're astounded when they see the footprints with the symbols of Lord Vishnu in the house. They're astounded by that, and they hear the ankle bells. They're astounded, and they're contemplating maybe, and in the dream, Lord Narayan, he's Lord Narayan, but no, he's my son. They Shneha Punna, what is that? That Putra Darsh Ananda, when he comes back from the river, having taken bath, Putra Darsh Ananda Guchiro Bicha. They forget. They're thinking, is he a special being? Is he God? How is it that they all came and complained, and he looks like he never even been to the Ganga? He comes back having taken bath. Putra Darshanande, being overwhelmed and seeing him. Putra Darshanande, Guchiro Bicha. They forgot everything. Shneha Ponno Hoilo Duha Kichu Nahi Ar. They forgot that they are eternal associates. They forgot that he's God because there's so much in affection for him. They're just Shneha Ponno Hoilo. Shneha Ponno Hoilo Duha Kichu Nahi Ar. Nothing else. No consideration. He's God and we're eternal associates. However, Prabhupada's mentioning here, on the other hand, Prabhupada's saying that she's, from the beginning of life, she's doing Vishnu Seva. Because Prabhupada says, a Nitya Siddha never forgets the service of the Lord. So that's interesting that they may not, we could understand that they may not remember that they're an eternal servant of the Lord, but they're always serving the Lord. Like the Braja above, that they don't think that he's God and we're his servants. They're just in love with him. Prabhupada also, we see in his childhood, he's never saying that, well, I was a Nitya Siddha, so, I was thinking like that, I was thinking like this. Not doing like that. It was all new. Prabhupada wasn't even thinking about spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world until he met with Shri Thakur. So he's not thinking he's an eternal associate, but his love for the Lord is as it is always, and he's always serving the Lord. And so he performs the Rath Yatra festival and arranges it, organizes it, even though he's 6 years old. A fascinating statements that she makes here, and the Prabhupada's purports when we explore this in detail about a Nitya Siddha, the character of a Nitya Siddha devotee, which we should understand. So then, after praying like that and asking this benediction, Sachimata, she submitted. Because other devotees began to invite Mahaprabhu, because he's headed by Shivash Thakur, they're beginning to invite him for lunch, because every day he's taking prasadam in Advaita Prabhu's house. And then, so Sachi says that, well, how many times will I see the Lord again? You devotees, you can see him somewhere else. You Prabhus, you can see him somewhere else. But even the wives, sometimes they went to Jagannath Puri. The wives, Sivananda Sen, Shivash Thakur, Advaita Thakur, sometimes their wives, on some of the annual trips, sometimes the wives come, but Sachimata never went. Why? Because she's an old lady and she's a widow. She not going to be able to do that. What's the possibility of my ever meeting him again? I shall have to remain home, and a sannyasi never returns to his home. So then she says, you give me this charity that only I will supply food for this period of time while he's here in Advaita Thakur's house. Shuni, Bhaktagon, Kohe, Kori Namaskar. So hearing this, the devotee said, having paid obeisances to Sachimata, hearing her and then paying obeisances, the devotees said that Matar Jai Icha She Shamata Shabai, they all accepted with great respect this desire. They all agreed. Shamata, they all agreed, everybody agreed to her desire. She's thinking at this stage, she's not even thinking about Jagannath Puri, it appears. She's just thinking, let me at least cook for him. I may never see him again, she's thinking. Let me at least be the only one who cooks for him for the next 10 days while he's here. So Mahaprabhu, seeing Sachimata's eagerness, he's beginning to consider. So he assembles all the devotees. Seeing her and seeing this going on, he's beginning to consider. He assembles all the devotees. He says, I tried to go to Vrndavana, that there was some obstacle. That was Nityananda Prabhu's arrangement. So he's come back. He tried to go to Vrndavana, but now he's in Shantipur. He mentions it because I didn't get permission from you without your order. So now I had to return. Although I suddenly accepted the renounced order, I will never be indifferent to you. Nor will I be able to give up Sachimati. Mahaprabhu says in text 177 that Shanyashir Dharma Nahe Shannash Koriya. Duties of a sannyasi, and a sannyasi should never. It's a duty of Shannash Koriya, having accepted sannyas. Sannyas Koriya, Shanyashir Dharma Nahe. It's not the duty of a sannyasi, having accepted sannyas, that Nija Janmasthane Rahe Kutumba Laya. Nija Janmasthane Rahe. He's not meant to stay in his birthplace. This is Sannyasi Dharma. Sannyasi Dharma. He's not meant to stay in his birthplace. Rahi Kutumba Laya, with his relatives. That's an interesting principle. We could discuss some time on that. But even we're not a sannyasi, we're a grihasta, but still we're not, we've left the Janmashthan. I have 5 brothers and sisters, and they all have children, and we're not living there, because it's these things, and you're living there in that Janmashthan, then these obligations are unavoidable. So therefore they leave the Janmastan. So I'm fortunate to be able to leave Australia and live in India. It's very conducive for spiritual development. What to speak of a sannyasi? Even a Vaishnav Grihastha, this principle, or preacher, Vaishnav is relevant. Sometimes devotees ask, so much trouble, so much resistance we get from family members. Well, this is the solution. Go somewhere else. And then we'll give you, go somewhere else and preach and set up some preaching, we'll do some preaching work. Because if you go doing preaching work, then certainly you'll be maintained by Mahaprabhu. So this is Mahaprabhu saying this. It's not the duty of a sannyasi to remain at home. And then he says, make some arrangement so that I may not leave you, but at the same time, people will not blaming me for remaining with relatives. I cannot give you up. And even I tried, but you just see, again, we are together. I cannot give you up. I cannot be indifferent to you. So make some arrangement whereby I can remain with you and people won't criticize me. It's interesting because on other occasions, Mahaprabhu talks about sannyasi never considers this, that they will see me as a sannyasi. These atheists, the smartas, the academics, seeing a sannyasi, they'll fall down at my feet. So in this way, I can deliver the entire universe. So this is more important. But here also, Mahaprabhu is saying, no, I can't give up the Navadip Basi's Shanga. I can't give it up. So I don't want to give it up. So just make an arrangement where I can keep it and people won't criticize me. So then all the devotees approached Sachimata. And then Sachimata began to speak because Mahaprabhu had said that whatever you order, I will follow, and wherever you say, I will stay. So they've all approached her now and then. And Sachimata begins to speak. And she says, Tate, jukta, bhalo, moramon lai. I think this is a good idea, she says. Moramon lai, it comes to my mind. This consideration is good. Tate, jukta, bhalo. Nila chale rohe, jodi dui karja hoy. Yeah, I'll sing that again there. Tate jukta bhalo, moramon lai, nila chale kohe jodi dui karja hoy. You stay in Nilachal rohe, you stay in Nilachal, and dui karja hoy, you can fulfill these two responsibilities. You're not staying in a Janmastan, but because in Jagannath Puri, because Navadip and Puri are intimately related, Dui Gaur, egg body, Dui Gaur, like two rooms in a house. So devotees from Navadip, they go to Puri, and devotees from Puri, they go to see Lord Jagannath, and devotees from Puri, they go to Navadip, to Ganga Darshan, Ganga Snan. And in this way, they'll be coming and going. News will be carried by the devotees. And this happened that every year the devotees went to Jagannath Puri from Navadip. Took them a month to walk there and walk back. And in this way, and in addition to that, devotees were regularly going. So Mother Sachi would get news, and Nimai, in this way, she would be able to remain alive. Tumi Shov, Korite, Paro, Gamon, she's saying to all those Vaishnavas who have come to her now for the resolution. Tumi Shov, Korite, Paro, Gamon, you're all able to come and go. Ganga Shnan, Kabo, Hobe, Dar, Agamon, and perhaps that Mahaprabhu, if he's in Puri, then he may also come to Gaudiya to take bath in Maganga, as we hear that Mahaprabhu does do. And for that reason, he says, Shuni, Bhaktigan, Tare, Korila, Shtobon. So hearing this, the devotees began to offer prayers to Sachimata. Bed Agga, Jaiche, Mata, Tomar, Bachon, Bed Agya Jaiche, just like a Vedic injunction. Bed Agga Jaiche, just like a Vedic injunction. Mata, Tomar, Bachon, your words, oh mother, your words are just like a Vedic injunction for us. And never be violated. So the devotees informed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of that decision, of Sachimata's decision. And hearing this, the Lord became very pleased. Here, so in this way, Mahaprabhu, offering due respects to all the devotees, he smilingly bade farewell to them and began his journey to Jagannath Puri, which we've heard in previous meetings, the details of the journey from Gaudiya to Jagannath Puri. Actually, we heard that when we were in Jagannath Puri in our last visit there. So are there any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. A very wonderful session given by you. I want to thank you for it. And so actually, I think, I'm not sure if this question has been asked before, but I still had a doubt in my mind. So why do we worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his like non-sannyas form? Like after taking sannyas, he could, actually take the movement outside to the others, not only limited to Navadvip or his close associates. So then his sannyas form actually, like after he took sannyas, the movement, like it took off really well. So then why do we not worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his sannyas form?
That's a good question. That is a good question. That's I will respond, but you can ask that question again and again and hear what people say. Why we worship Navadip Chandra like that? What's the reason? Now the preaching was in full. It was in full. I mean, in Eshikane Shabnadi Efiche Neche Gornita Radha Krishna Bol Shabai with the ankles nupur and they're dancing, going through the that. Shabnadi Efiche Neche Gornita dancing with the ankle bows and the beautiful Lord Nityananda Prabhu's decorations. He had jewels, he had rings on all his fingers. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, rings on all his fingers. There's lakhs and lakhs of rupees worth of gold and ornaments on the body of Lord Nityananda when he was preaching. There's a story we'll share with you about these dacoits, these famous dacoits in Bengal. They saw Lord Nityananda and they said, brothers, we can retire after this job. We can retire. This one sannyasi, this one mendicant, there's so much jewelry, it will be enough for all of us to retire for the rest of our lives. So that was the style of Lord Nityananda Prabhu's dress. So, and he was preaching in that way. So what can we say? It wasn't that the preaching was any less because they weren't renunciates. Although renunciates were also preaching. Haridas Thakur, he was a great renunciate, and he was also preaching.
Yes.
So grihe babonete take ha gauranga bolidake. Renunciates can preach, householders can preach. That's the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. So then why he took sannyas? Well, because there's a certain class of people who didn't accept him. And we heard in previous sessions how when he was returning to Vidyanagar, all of those atheists, smartas and Shaktas, they all came and they all got the mercy of the Lord. As a sannyasi, so that's why he took sannyas, to claim all of those different classes. So that's the purpose of sannyas. But the preaching was already in fully manifest. The Audarja Dham, the Kripa Shakti Mahaprabhu's avatar in Navadip Dham, and his preaching in Navadip Dham, and that was already fully manifest there. So then when it comes to the puja, well, it's painful for the devotees not to be able to decorate the Lord. The sannyasi, he's just going to have one simple cloth. And the kamandalu and the dandar, Mahaprabhu would complain if the devotees made a soft bed for him and brought oils. But as a householder, then, so much, and as a sannyasi, Mahaprabhu would say, just give me the boiled vegetables. The sannyasi shouldn't eat like that. So worshipping Mahaprabhu in the form of a sannyasi would be not satisfying to the devotees. So they worship him as Navadip Chandra, is beautifully decorated with such opulence and beautiful clothes and different garments and beautiful colors and a turban and beautiful jewelry and necklaces and garlands and ankle bells. The devotees take great pleasure in worshipping Navadip Chandra in that way. So that would be my humble answer to that question. But I'm sure there's other angles that could be suggested by others to whom you asked that question.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. We wish you all the well. We wish you all the best for your observance of the Gaudiya Purnima Maha Ushop, which is going to be observed on Friday. And we'll have another session on Sunday. And we may carry on Sunday, we'll carry on with what happens after Rupa and Sanatana return. Mahaprabhu comes back. He goes to he comes back to Jagannath Puri. And then as we heard, he goes to the forest, Jharkhand, he goes to Vrindavan. He's 10, 12 days in Vrindavan. That's a whole chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu's visit to Vrindavan, which we can discuss in detail on another occasion. And then coming back from Vrindavan at Prayagraj, Rupa Goswami, after this meeting, Rupa Goswami arranges everything. He leaves, he renounces everything and divides the money, heads to Vrindavan. We'll meet Mahaprabhu in Vrindavan, we'll stay in Vrindavan with him. He goes, Sanatana Goswami is still entangled. Rupa Goswami goes, Mahaprabhu's been to Vrindavan, he leaves. We'll discuss in more detail. And as he's returning back, then he meets with Rupa Goswami in Prayag, and then there's the Rupa Shikha. And we'll begin to discuss that in the next session this Sunday, next coming Sunday. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shamveta Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Shishimita Gaur Shikanath Pramanam.